Hey there, this is Conflict Tales. Buckle up, because today's story is packed with drama, conflict, and shocking turns. I woke up to an empty driveway. My car was gone. At first, I thought it had been stolen, but there were no broken windows, no signs of forced entry. Then, I saw the new sign standing right in front of my house. No parking, Homeowner Association enforced. My stomach twisted. I had parked my car there for months without an issue. Now, overnight, a brand new rule had appeared out of nowhere, and my vehicle had vanished. I stormed into my house, grabbed my phone, and called the Homeowner Association office. The line rang twice before a chirpy, condescending voice answered. "Homeowner Association, this is Karen speaking. How can I help you?" "My car is gone. Was it towed?" "Oh, Mr. Dawson," she said, dragging out my name like she was savoring it. "Yes, your vehicle was in violation of our newly revised parking regulations. It's been removed for non-compliance." "Newly revised? When? There was nothing yesterday." "The rule took effect at midnight. Notices were sent via email," she replied, her voice smug. I checked my inbox. Nothing. No emails, no alerts, nothing in spam. I never got a notice. "Oh dear, perhaps you should check your email settings," she chirped. "Regardless, the rule stands. Your car was improperly parked on Homeowner Association-controlled property." "Homeowner Association-controlled property? That's the road in front of my house." "Correct," she said. "As of last month, the Homeowner Association has acquired jurisdiction over select community roadways to maintain the aesthetic integrity of our neighborhood." Something about that sounded off. I had been living here for over a year, and the street had always been public property. "Where's my car?" "Oh, you'll need to speak with Blake's Towing. They've impounded it. I can provide you with their contact information." The call ended before I could argue further. I clenched my jaw, fury boiling inside me. This was no accident. They had set me up. I called Blake's Towing. A bored-sounding man named Garrett answered. "Yeah, we got your car. Need to pick it up. Gonna be a $250 retrieval fee." $250? For what? "Storage fee, towing fee, processing fee." I gritted my teeth. "I was never notified. This is illegal. Look, buddy, you want to file a complaint? Go talk to your homeowner association. They called us." That was it. I was going down to the homeowner association office in person. I arrived to find Karen sitting at her oversized mahogany desk, smiling as if she had just won a game I didn't know I was playing. "Mr. Dawson," she said, feigning concern. "Is there an issue?" "You know damn well there's an issue. You had my car towed overnight based on a rule no one knew existed. That's theft." "Oh, now," she tisked. "It's simply an enforcement of our community standards, and, as per the Homeowner Association bylaws, all residents are required to comply with new regulations once enacted." I leaned forward, lowering my voice. "I checked the city records before I came here. That road is still public property. The Homeowner Association never purchased it. You have no authority to enforce parking rules on it." Something flickered in her eyes just for a second before she smiled wider. "Perhaps you should check again, Mr. Dawson. The transfer was approved last month. Now, if you have concerns, I suggest you take them up with the city. I wasn't about to let this slide. I needed proof. If they had lied about this, what else were they covering up?" That evening, I knocked on my neighbor Sam's door. He was an older man, quiet, but I had seen him dealing with Homeowner Association headaches before. When he opened the door, his expression was wary. "Sam, did you hear anything about a new parking rule?" He exhaled sharply. "They got you too." He rubbed his temples. "Same thing happened to me 6 months ago. Woke up, car gone. They said it was illegally parked, but I've been using that spot for years." "Did you get your car back?" His jaw tightened. "Had to pay the fine. Then Homeowner Association hit me with a series of violations. Overgrown grass, improper trash bin placement, you name it. I fought back, and suddenly my Homeowner Association fees doubled. They're punishing people who don't fall in line." I felt a cold weight settle in my stomach. This was bigger than just my car. That night, I started digging. City Hall's website had public property records. I spent 2 hours sifting through legal jargon before I found something damning. The road in front of my house was still public property. The Homeowner Association had no right to claim it. The transfer Karen mentioned, it never legally happened. I stared at the screen. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was fraud, and I wasn't about to let them get away with it. I couldn't sleep that night. The Homeowner Association had overstepped in ways that were not just frustrating, but illegal. They had fabricated a rule, falsified ownership of a public road, and weaponized bureaucracy against homeowners who dared to push back. The pieces were falling into place: the impound fees, the sudden rule changes, the way they targeted people who resisted. If they had been running this scam for months, how much money had they siphoned from unsuspecting residents? I needed evidence. Real evidence, not just my suspicions. At dawn, I grabbed my laptop and drove straight to the county records office. The receptionist barely looked up as I requested documentation on property transfers for the last year. When she finally handed me the files, my heart pounded. I flipped through pages of transactions, searching for any mention of a transfer from the city to the Homeowner Association. Nothing. No recorded sale, no legal transfer, no documentation. The Homeowner Association had lied. I snapped pictures of the relevant documents and stepped outside, gripping my phone like a weapon. My next stop was City Hall. I wanted to confront the zoning office and force an official statement about the status of my street. But as I reached for my car door, a familiar voice made me freeze. "You really don't know when to quit, do you?" Karen was leaning against her pristine white SUV, arms crossed. Her smile was sharp, practiced. "Digging around in city records? That's cute." I clenched my jaw. "Why don't you tell me why there's no record of your so-called road acquisition?" She tilted her head, eyes gleaming. "Maybe you just don't know where to look. Or maybe there's nothing to find because it never happened." I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "I have the documents, Karen. You and your little committee are committing fraud. You had my car towed illegally, and I'm going to prove it." Her smile didn't waver. "Oh, sweetie, let's not be dramatic. This is just a misunderstanding. Save it for a judge." Her expression darkened for the first time. "You think anyone's going to care? You think the city will side with some disgruntled homeowner over a well-established association? People like me, we run this community. People like you make noise, you cause trouble, and then you get buried under paperwork and legal fees until you realize fighting isn't worth it." She wasn't entirely wrong. The Homeowner Association had money, lawyers, influence. They had manipulated the system for years. But she had underestimated me. I turned without another word and drove straight to the zoning office. Inside, an exhausted-looking man named Harris reluctantly pulled up the street's zoning history. When I asked about the Homeowner Association's jurisdiction, he frowned. "That's odd. There's no record of any ownership transfer. As far as the city's concerned, that road still belongs to the public." I showed him my phone, the photos from the records office. Then explained why the Homeowner Association is claiming otherwise. He scratched his head. I can't. But that's not right. If they don't own it, they can't enforce parking laws there. That's illegal. I exhaled. Exactly. Now, what do I have to do to get this formally recognized? He hesitated. A legal challenge, probably. You'd need to file a petition with the city council. It's a process. That was the answer I feared. The Homeowner Association could stall a legal challenge for months, even years. I needed something faster, something that would force their hand. Then I had an idea. I reached out to my daughter, Lisa. She was a journalist who specialized in uncovering local corruption. If there was one person who could turn this into a story people would care about, it was her. When she picked up, I didn't waste time. "I need your help. The Homeowner Association is running an illegal towing racket, and I have proof." She was silent for a beat. "Okay, tell me everything." Over the next hour, I laid out everything I knew. The illegal towing, the fraudulent road claims, the financial scam hidden under layers of bureaucracy. By the time I finished, she was already typing. This could be big. If I can get a few more sources, I can write an exposé and take this public. You're going to have plenty of sources, I said. I'm going door to door to find other victims. I spent the next few hours talking to my neighbors. Most were hesitant to speak up, too afraid of retaliation, but when I knocked on Sam's door, he sighed and let me in. I thought I was the only one, he admitted. They took my car 6 months ago. I fought it, but they buried me in fees and citations until I gave up. Did they send you an email about a new rule before they towed it? No, I just woke up and it was gone. When I went to the Homeowner Association, they said I should have checked the community bulletin. My stomach twisted. The same excuse they had used on me. I have proof they don't own the road. This is fraud, Sam. His face darkened. I want to help. What do you need? Statements. Anyone else you know who's been hit with this? We need to show this isn't just a one-time thing. Over the next 2 days, I collected testimonies, gathered paperwork, and Liza worked on the article. The night before she planned to publish, I got a message from an unknown number. Stop, or you'll regret it. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. This wasn't just about a car anymore. This was war. The message wasn't just a warning, it was a declaration of war. Someone didn't want this story coming out, and they were willing to threaten me to stop it. I stared at my phone, debating whether to show it to Lisa. She was already neck-deep in the investigation, and I didn't want her to be a target too. But I knew she'd see through me if I tried to hide it. When I showed her the message, she didn't even flinch. That means we're close to something big, and that means we go harder. I spent the next morning reviewing everything we had. Testimonies, financial records, municipal property data. Liza was drafting her article, and I was lining up witnesses willing to speak out. But there was still a missing piece. We needed to know exactly how the Homeowner Association got away with this. I had a feeling it wasn't just Karen pulling the strings. Someone higher up had to be involved. Someone who had access to city documents, zoning laws, and permits. I went back to Harris at the zoning office, pushing a copy of the city records across his desk. There's no official transfer of this road to the Homeowner Association. Can you explain that? He rubbed his temples and glanced around, lowering his voice. I shouldn't be telling you this, but there was an internal request filed last year. The request to transfer the road was denied. But then, 3 months later, it just disappeared from the system. Disappeared. As if it was never filed. The paperwork is gone. The digital records, wiped. The only reason I know it existed is because I saw the denial notice before it vanished. I felt a chill run through me. Who has the power to make something like that disappear? Harris hesitated. Someone in the city clerk's office. Maybe even the mayor's office. Look, I'm sticking my neck out just telling you this. Be careful. I walked out of the zoning office knowing one thing for certain. This wasn't just about Homeowner Association corruption. This went deeper. And if city officials were involved, it meant they had resources, lawyers, and a system that protected them. That evening, Lisa called me. I just got an anonymous tip. Someone wants to meet, says they have documents proving the Homeowner Association has been funneling money through fake maintenance projects. But they won't talk over the phone. They want to meet in person. Who is it? They wouldn't say, but they want to meet at the old gas station on Jefferson at midnight. Everything about this screamed setup. But we needed evidence, and if this person had the missing puzzle pieces, we had to take the risk. I agreed to meet them, but not without precautions. I parked a block away from the gas station and watched from a distance. The lot was empty except for a single dark-colored sedan. Liza stayed in her car while I approached. I knocked on the window, and the driver rolled it down just enough for me to see a pair of wary eyes staring back at me. You Dawson? Who are you? Doesn't matter. What matters is that I used to work for the city, and I saw what they did. He shoved a thick envelope into my hands. Everything's in there. Bank transfers, fake invoices, internal memos. Your Homeowner Association is running a money laundering scheme and the city is helping them cover it up. I barely had time to register his words before he tensed and glanced over my shoulder. "You need to go. Now. You're being watched." I turned just as a black SUV came around the corner, its headlights cutting through the darkness. The informant's window shot up, and he sped off before I could stop him. I ran back to my car, heart pounding, and jumped in. Lisa floored the gas before I could even tell her what happened. "Who was that?" she asked, eyes darting between the rearview mirror and the road ahead. "Someone with proof, and someone who's scared for his life." We didn't stop driving until we were back at my house. We locked the doors and dumped the envelope onto the kitchen table. Inside were pages of transactions, correspondence between Homeowner Association officials and city employees, and proof that the towing racket was just the tip of the iceberg. The Homeowner Association had been inflating maintenance costs, billing homeowners for repairs that never happened, and sending kickbacks to city officials in exchange for favorable treatment. Then, at the bottom of the stack, I saw something that made my blood run cold. My name. A printed email exchange between Karen and an unnamed city official. "Dawson is becoming a problem. If he keeps pushing, we'll need to deal with him." Liza paled. "Dad, they're watching you. They know you won't back down." I clenched my fists. "Then they should know I'm just getting started." I didn't sleep that night. Every sound outside made me sit up. Every shadow through the curtains looked like someone watching. Liza stayed over, her laptop open as she continued compiling everything we had. The evidence was undeniable. The Homeowner Association wasn't just scamming homeowners. They were running a full-scale financial racket with the city's help. And now, they knew that I knew. By morning, I had a plan. We needed to get this story out before they had a chance to bury it. Liza was reaching out to her media contacts, but that would take time. I needed something more immediate. I called Sam and a few of the neighbors who had given us statements. "We're going public," I told them. "We're holding a meeting at my house tonight. If we come together, they can't ignore us." Sam hesitated. "They'll come after us. You know that." "They already have," I said. "That's why we don't stay quiet." By evening, nearly a dozen people were packed into my living room. Some were hesitant, still afraid. Others were angry, ready to fight. I laid everything out: the illegal transfers, the forged documents, the financial fraud. The reactions ranged from shock to outrage. One neighbor, Rachel, shook her head. "I knew something was off when they started raising fees without explanation, but I never thought it was this bad." Sam exhaled heavily. "So what do we do? They have the city on their side. We don't stand a chance." "We make it impossible for them to ignore us," I said. "We take this to every news outlet, every legal avenue, and if that doesn't work, we make enough noise that they can't hide it." Before anyone could respond, my doorbell rang. The room fell silent. My pulse pounded as I walked to the door and pulled it open. Karen stood there, smiling like a predator sizing up its prey. Behind her, two men in suits flanked her like bodyguards. "Evening, Mr. Dawson. May we come in?" I didn't move. "We're in the middle of something. If you've got something to say, say it." Her smile didn't falter. "Oh, I think this conversation would be better in private." "No thanks. Anything you have to say, you can say in front of everyone." Her eyes flicked past me, scanning the crowd behind me. "I see you've been busy. I do hope you're not spreading misinformation. That can be very dangerous." I folded my arms. "You mean dangerous like illegally towing people's cars? Or falsifying city records? Or money laundering?" For the first time, her smile twitched. "I don't know what wild theories you're entertaining, but I assure you, everything the Homeowner Association does is above board. However," she stepped closer, lowering her voice just enough that only I could hear, "if you continue this reckless behavior, there may be consequences. For you, for your daughter, for everyone in that room." I felt my blood turn to ice. I stared at her, my jaw tightening. "That a threat?" "A warning," she said. "A friendly one." I clenched my fists so hard my knuckles ached. I wanted to call her bluff, but I knew she wasn't bluffing. These people had power. They had money, and they had city officials in their pocket. They could make my life hell if they wanted to. But I also knew something else. They were scared. If they weren't, Karen wouldn't be standing here trying to intimidate me in my own home. If they weren't, they wouldn't be sending warnings instead of shutting me down outright. That meant we were winning. I exhaled slowly and smiled. Well, Karen, I appreciate the friendly advice, but I think I'll take my chances. Her lips pressed into a thin line. I'd rethink that if I were you. I didn't move. I didn't blink. And after a long moment, she turned on her heel and walked away. The men followed her without a word. I shut the door and turned back to the room. We need to move fast. We go public first thing tomorrow. Lisa nodded. I'll finish the article and send it to my contacts tonight. Rachel raised a hand. I have a friend who works at the state attorney's office. I can reach out, see if they're willing to look into this. Sam straightened. I'll talk to more neighbors. If we can get enough people to come forward, they can't brush us aside. The room buzzed with energy. Fear had turned into determination. We weren't just homeowners anymore. We were a movement. That night, I barely slept. I expected a rock through my window, a slash in my tires, something to let me know they weren't done. But the night passed without incident. Too quiet, too easy. At dawn, I turned on the news. And that's when I saw it. Breaking: allegations of corruption. Rock Local Homeowner Association. Investigation underway. Lisa's article had gone live, and the story had already spread. I barely had time to process it before my phone rang. I picked up, and a familiar voice whispered through the line. You shouldn't have done that. Then the call went dead. I stared at the screen, my pulse pounding. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. The phone call echoed in my head long after the line went dead. I knew they were coming. The only question was how far they were willing to go to shut me up. I had pushed them into a corner, and cornered animals were the most dangerous. Liza sat across from me, her face tense but her eyes burning with determination. We have to be smart about this. They won't just let this go. The article had gone viral overnight. Local news stations picked it up, and by the afternoon, the state attorney's office had issued a statement saying they would be reviewing the allegations. The Homeowner Association was under a microscope now, and Karen knew it. That didn't mean they wouldn't try to make a move before the law caught up to them. I checked my security cameras. Everything seemed quiet. Too quiet. Sam had stationed himself at his window across the street, his rifle propped against the sill just in case things got ugly. You see anything? I asked him over the phone. Not yet, but I don't like this silence. It's the calm before the storm. He wasn't wrong. At exactly 7 p.m., 3 black SUVs rolled down the street and stopped in front of my house. The doors opened simultaneously, and out stepped Karen, flanked by 5 men in suits. They weren't Homeowner Association board members. These were professionals, enforcers. My stomach tightened, but I didn't back down. I stepped onto my porch, Liza right behind me. Karen's smile was gone. Mr. Dawson, we need to have a conversation. No, we don't. Whatever you have to say, you can say to the Attorney General. One of the men stepped forward. You're making a mistake. Funny, I was about to say the same to you. You're trespassing. Karen folded her arms. Let's cut the theatrics. You're in over your head. The people I work with don't like loose ends. If you walk away from this now, we can make all of this disappear. No legal troubles, no financial ruin, no accidents. I laughed, but it was hollow. You really think I'm going to back down now? You stole from this community. You lied, you manipulated the system, and now you're trying to intimidate me into silence. It's not going to work. Her face darkened. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Good, I like hard. The man in the suit took another step forward, but before he could say a word, Sam's voice rang out from across the street. You take one more step, and I drop you where you stand. The men stiffened. Karen's eyes flicked toward Sam's house where he stood on his porch, rifle aimed and steady. We're done here, she snapped, but don't think this is over. They got back into their SUVs and drove off without another word, but I knew it wasn't over. This was just a temporary retreat. Liza turned to me. We need to move fast. If they're calling in muscle, that means they're scared. We have to get this to federal authorities. The state might be compromised. She was right. The city had turned a blind eye for too long, and if the Homeowner Association had deep enough connections, they could stall an investigation indefinitely. I started making calls. The FBI had a corruption tip line, and I had everything they needed: financial records, witness statements, evidence of fraud, even proof of intimidation. The next morning, I met with an agent in person. He took one look at the documents and nodded. "We've been hearing whispers about this Homeowner Association for a while. If what you're saying is true, this is bigger than just one neighborhood. We'll take it from here." That should have been the end of it. But I knew it wouldn't be that easy. 2 nights later, a fire broke out at City Hall. The zoning office where Harris worked was one of the most affected areas. Files, records, all gone. Officially, it was ruled an electrical fire. Unofficially, we knew better. Then Harris went missing. No one had seen him since the night of the fire. I couldn't prove it was them, but I didn't have to. The pattern was clear. They were cleaning up loose ends. But what they hadn't counted on was the number of people watching now. By the end of the week, the FBI raided the Homeowner Association office. Karen was arrested on charges of fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. Her enforcers disappeared, but I knew they'd show up somewhere else, working another scheme. Sam and I watched the news from my living room as they dragged her out in cuffs. "Think that's the last of them?" he asked. I shook my head. People like that don't just disappear. They regroup. They rebuild. But at least for now, we've shut them down. Lisa leaned back with a smirk. And next time, they'll know better than to mess with us. The war wasn't over, but we had won this battle.